Internet? My name's Adam Dilbeck. I am co-host of the Mid-Marketers. We've got a special guest here today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Savannah Bobo. I am the senior copywriter at Extu. Usually I'm behind the scenes, so this is fun.
We drug her out into the light. And I forgot my other co-host, our chief marketing officer, pretty prominent figure.
Oh yeah, she's here too.
Hey guys. It's interesting. You introduced yourself as the senior content writer, and she is here at Extu. However, she's also probably our leading expert in-house on psychology and how we use motivation to improve loyalty. So I think that's why she's here today, guys. She's going to talk about all the fun things in psychology and how they tie into incentives.
Yeah, and if you're wondering what we're here to talk about today, we're talking about the power of psychology and 3 ways to unlock motivation and to improve loyalty. Psychology obviously has a big factor on incentives and loyalty and all those kind of programs, right?
Yeah, it's really my favorite thing to write about. I think it's really interesting, namely because there isn't just like one size fits all answer to everything. Incentives kind of vary in how they affect people depending on different situations. So it's really fun to read about, I think, and it's really fun to write about.
It is.
Well, but it's not just incentives, right, you guys? It's also marketing. Psychology plays a massive part in marketing. And so you see, I know a lot of times we talk about incentives or TCM or, training or whatever, but I think when you talk about marketing as a whole, psychology is one of the true underlying factors that plays into the emotional and in really the consumer behaviors that exist today.
Yeah.
Forever, maybe not just today. But.
Yeah. Watch Mad Men to learn all about that.
What do you mean?
It's all about psychology and marketing and how advertising affects people both like superficially and deep in their souls.
Mad Men is?
Mad Men, yeah, the show about advertising.
Huh. I never looked that deep into it, I guess. What were you going to say, Nichole?
Vanna's a very deep human. Adam is very surface.
I like the logo.
Well, I was going to say it is super innate, right? Because when you think of it, we'll just use Coca-Cola and the whole Santa Claus thing. We all know about that, right? It's not anything new. Polar bears, like you see a polar bear, you relate it to Christmas and you relate it to Coca-Cola now. Same thing when you see red and Santa, like you can't help yourself. That color red, it's that reinforcement.
I never read the red and white connection before.
You didn't know about that?
I mean, like, superficially I did, but I never thought, like, oh, yeah, Santa, red and white, like Coke.
Welcome to
consciously thought about
it. Yeah, it's this. There are a lot of, I don't say studies, but a lot of people have talked about that and what brilliant marketing it is. But it goes back into that psychological and the way that we relate things.
I mean, their marketing kind of defined a culture. Like everything's built around it. You don't even
reach out and touch someone. Like they've done a really great job, right? Who doesn't want to connect to people, especially in today's time when this is how we communicate, right? So it's pretty smart on their part. And again, it plays into the psychology of people.
Yeah, I left my phone in my car and I'm going to have a panic attack any second.
That is, again, psychological, right? You get that beep and you're like, whoa, dopamine hit.
Alert.
This is our show's first panic attack.
Arrive on here.
Yeah, but I mean, like that kind of leads into the first question I have, which is like Savannah, like she said, is a senior copywriter. We've got thousands and thousands and thousands of blogs, and she's written the large majority of them, and she is like the most studied person I know on incentive theory, the psychology of it, which we're here to talk about today. So I just want to know a little bit, like, how does the brain react to motivation and rewards?
That's a really complicated question. It has a lot of different answers, but the basic idea started with this psychologist named B.F. Skinner, who in the 30s, he sort of invented this idea of like the rat race and rats chasing rewards because he was studying like how animals reacted to rewards. So he found that, if he could get them to do simple things like pull a lever in order to get a treat or something like that. And of course, it's gotten more complicated as the years have gone by. They've done studies with primates and things like that. Humans are way more complicated than mice, though. So there's a lot more involved with it.
Like what? I mean, because you hear people say like, "Oh, you've got your pay," which is the cheese at the,
Yeah.
the maze, right? But like, where does it veer off in more complicated territory?
So one thing is that you can't just give someone a reward over and over and get the same, like, oh yeah, I'm so happy to pull this lever to get that same reward. Like eventually they lose that excitement about that same little piece of cheese, let's say. So you either have to give them more pieces of cheese or switch it up and make it with something else that might
Like, I use a little fish with this.
yeah, look. I don't think my secret.
A nice charcuterie.
Yeah,
tray.
yeah, charcuterie. Yeah, let's say different kinds of cheese. So you use sharp cheddar, then once in a while you throw some brie in there, and now they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, and then the dopamine in their brain releases in a different amount. So that it's not only like a feel-good chemical, it also causes you to pay attention and be engaged. So your brain is like, oh, something I didn't expect just happened. That means I should like really pay attention to what's going on here.
Wait, it was interesting. We talk a lot about the positive, but you guys remember the book Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah.
Right? It kind of plays into that. It's about two humans and two mice who live in a maze, and one day they're faced with change in life, and some respond positive and some respond negative, and it's ultimately about adjusting your attitude towards life or work or whatever, a product or whatever your situation. If you were to take it outside of the book and that situation and put it into yours, it's to your point, the cheese or the reward has a massive impact in some way. Some people are never going to like change. They're not going to necessarily move toward it. And, we have an old philosophy here. It's that 20-60-20 rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
Top 20% of your high performers are likely going to always be high performers because that they're so passionate. There's a sense of urgency and
They're just
they're
driven.
competitive and driven and all the things. And you've got that middle 60% where yes, no, they may like another product and there's a lot of different attributes to why they're in the 60%. However, you have the most opportunity to move them and turn them into high performers. Then you've got that bottom 20%, and they're just not going to change their attitude. So don't worry about them, right? Like we spend so much time worrying about the negatives and the naysayers, and like ultimately, who cares?
Move who you can. The people with the most upside.
Let
right?
them chase the cheese. Yeah.
I think that's why it's really important to have we say that we're reward agnostic, right? We don't love any one reward more than the other. And that's because you need different rewards to motivate those different groups of people. Like the top, they're the people who have gotten rewards all along, and they're not going to be impressed. They're like, I'm already a high achiever. I've gotten all the rewards there are to get. So for them, you want to do something big like travel versus the middle and the bottom. You can get them more consistently engaged by offering like points, and they can spend their points on things like movie tickets and things that are not necessarily like huge life-altering rewards, but they're still exciting and they're still getting that consistent hit of enjoyment.
So there's a chemical name for all of these things, right?
Yes, it's dopamine.
What does dopamine do?
So dopamine is the chemical that is associated with something pleasurable or desirable or novel that happens to you. And that is a gross reduction of what dopamine is. I know, I'm sorry to all you scientists and psychologists who are like, no, it's more complicated than that. But for the purposes of what we're talking about, if you are a marketer and you want to trigger that in someone, it's generally going to be like a pleasurable experience or something that's new and engaging to them.
So like we were talking about earlier, the Coke stuff. Nostalgia or
Yeah,
you get
'cause that-
points from your reward. I mean, there's lots of ways you can use dopamine as a marketer. Right?
Yeah, it's like either the physical, tangible rewards themselves or an emotion like Coke. They're not selling Santa Claus. You're not under the impression that you're going to go have a Coke with Santa Claus, but it inspires like a nostalgic emotion in you. They're selling nostalgia and associating that with their brand.
Well, that's exactly it. And brand recognition is so powerful, right? And so long as it evokes that warm and fuzzy feeling, that nostalgia, that deep innate like need to see the polar bear or Santa Claus at a certain time of year, right? But
Yeah.
for a lot of people, for those who've had unfortunate situations, that's a little different. But like for a lot of us, It's family time. It makes you think of being a kid again, those special mornings where you woke up and you went downstairs, especially, when I grew up, Coke was a very popular drink. How my grandmother to this day, she would rather have Coke than water. And it doesn't matter how many times the doctor nags her about it and says, you have to drink more water, you're dehydrated. She's 82 and I'm going to drink my Coca-Cola, and that's all there is to it.
My mom drinks is Diet Coke.
Well, and they were the ones who really experienced, we all experienced the Coke advertising, but they experienced it a lot when they were young in this different form, this kind of new, fresh form, and they are Coke loyal.
And what I've found just, in researching and writing about it, I think B2B brands and brands that sell through a distribution channel, they often struggle to tap into those emotions because either, they're selling to a business and their business is not necessarily feeling any type of thing about what they're buying, or you're selling to a consumer who, like an HVAC unit, you don't necessarily have a lot of emotions about that. You're just like, I'm hot, it's summer, it's 80 degrees, I need my air conditioner to work, I gotta get a new one.
And to work as long as possible.
But that's a good point, right? We're all so obsessed in 2024, and I'm even gonna go as far as 25, with product marketing, show the product, that we forget that all purchases are connected to an emotional response or an emotion. Most purchases are emotional. Mm-hmm. Yes, there is certainly a percentage of logic baked into that, but we have all experienced buyer's remorse, right? Typically after every major purchase. And so, especially if it's connected to your job, because then you've got two things on the line, right? Your security as well as both job and familial. So it is interesting, right? Like for product marketers, a great tip, I think, to Savannah's point, or what you're ultimately getting to, is you can market your product, but how to make sure you tie it into an emotion, whatever that emotion may be. Is it security? Is it time? Is it, whatever emotion you want to deliver, make sure that those things go hand in hand.
Down here in the South, HVAC is certainly security and happiness, because your life could be at risk if you don't have it.
Well, and likewise up north, can you imagine -30, hell, even any negative temperature, and for me, anything below
82.
No, I sleep with it in the 60s. 60s are good for me. But I'll tell you what, my HVAC unit went out, and we're not up north, you guys. We're in the South, where it's relatively warm, right?
Relatively.
Oh, but you guys remember last year when my HVAC went out, and it was like the week after Christmas, it was before, it was around the holidays, and it was freezing, and I thought, I was like, oh, we're going to make this fun. They can't get here to fix it. Yeah, we're going to sit around the fire, we'll put our gloves on. We go to Colorado, Wyoming. Like, we spend a lot of time in the cold. Within 12 hours, I'll get the stuff. We're going to a hotel. We will actually get divorced if we don't end up somewhere warm and fast.
Because if you stay in it that long, it just penetrates you. Like, it does get down to your bones, and it's not just like, sure, I'm outside with my coat, but then it just...
But I know now, so going back to the original point, right? Like, you have to have that security of...
Yep.
And to some extent, you could go, oh, but they're such spoiled Americans. No, this is necessary. You can't, if you think about those negative, what was it? You remember a couple of years ago it was trending where you could throw water in the air and it would just freeze. Mm. And we were all in the South like, whoa, now up there, that they're used to it. They're like, -30 is nothing. No, you will literally die if you sleep outside. And so it certainly does go back to security and safety, I guess.
On the consumer side or the end user, one of the ways that you can tap into their emotions is that security and confidence. Like, here's everything you need to know about our system and how it's going to last you a long time. But I think in the middle of the channel, how you tap into like the distributors and dealers and things like that is you can increase their confidence in what they're selling. So they know when they talk to someone who has this type of problem, they've gotten plenty of resources and enablement from you to know for sure when I talk to this customer, I'm going to sell them this and they're going to be happy. So I'm going to be happy. Everyone's happy.
A reward strategy is a system of rewarding employees or customers or channel partners for very specific actions. We're essentially changing behaviors, right? We're modifying behaviors. Some companies may take ad hoc approach into their reward strategy, but rewards are more effective when they're distributed as part of a bigger ideas a more holistic campaign. You know, I always find it interesting when people want to reward kind of, we'll use the same word, ad hoc. It's, no, you have to have a true marketing strategy. You can't just reward for behaviors that should be expected. You know, I always laugh when people go, we should reward that someone had a birthday. Well, why? What did that truly do? And I'm not picking on employee incentives, right? I think that they are necessary, but wouldn't you want to choose and plan a strategy that's actually building your culture into the direction and the vision that you have for your culture, not just happy birthday, or here's, you know, you've been with us for 15 years. Well, sometimes employees can be with you for 15 years, but they're not a great employee. So is that really what you want to be reinforcing? If they're not aligned with your vision and mission, and they're the guys at the water cooler doing the bad talk, it shouldn't be an award for them, right? There should be different conversations. So I'm just saying, we start thinking about rewards and incentives, and there's a comprehensive strategy that has to go along with that, because incentives are truly marketing campaigns.
Yeah, and one leg of it, right? Kind of like when you could do advertising, you have like the advertising octopus, and you have to hit all the different marks. It's not just like, here's a reward. You've got to hit, like, say you're doing a big one. You've got like your TV, you've got your paid, you've got your billboard, you've got your radio and all those things. So points is one part of the thing, like where you're doing emails, you're doing ads, you're sending out mailers, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So you bake the whole strategy around it, where the reward is like the cake topper. Right? Like, you've got all the feelings, and then once they get that, they're like, yeah, and it validates everything that they've experienced throughout what you've built with the campaign.
Well, if you're a channel marketer, let's put it into more real terms, right? It's like, okay, for every partner you onboard into our loyalty program, you're gonna, so maybe your goal is, and I'm gonna keep numbers easy. Your goal is 20 partners, and you're 25. You have to get 20 partners onboarded into the system. Okay, well, don't award them for getting 20 partners. That's the job, right? Your job is this, but maybe award them for getting 25 partners. Maybe it looks, and you can do tiered awards, right? So you're going to earn so much over your salary or your standard commissions if you get 25, 30, 35, whatever that looks like. But you can also, you know, it's not just getting them onboarded. Then you want them to start acting out in the behaviors, right, that are so necessary. And when I think of a behavior, the first thing I think about, let's go back to loyalty, because it's such a big deal. You know, products are similar enough today. And I think in a lot of regards, depending on what you're selling, you know, if it's a laptop, we all have the brands that we love, and we're not going to talk about this here, but we all have brands that we're loyal to, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if it's an HVAC unit, probably not so much. If it's plumbing pipes, the average consumer doesn't know what that is.
Who's your favorite plumbing company?
Right. And
I mean, it's technically, not technically, but usually it's whoever the guy coming out to install and give you a quote, what they recommend. And that's
right.
what that comes in.
And what are they recommending? What they're going to make the highest margins on.
Yep.
So if we've got two price points that are close, right? What's going to be the thing that puts them over the edge to choose your product to put in that house, and to really sell the reasons why? We got training, and you got something like rewards that can really help go a long way. And you tie that into your program, right? You're going to say something, Adam.
It's flown the coop.
Got to bring this guy a pencil so he can write it down. But so that's a type of real strategy, right? Where you're tying incentives into brand, right? So they're choosing your brand and learning about your brand, and training's another piece, right? If they're training, they're getting certifications, et cetera, you can award them for that. So they're truly becoming experts. And then you can do rebate programs for consumers so they become familiar. And don't forget to market to them later, right? Because we all know, like, when we buy an HVAC system, right? It's only a matter of time, or we can even use flooring, but there are all these other things that are going to come with it. But let's just do HVAC, like installers, right? They know that your HVAC unit is supposed to last a certain amount of time. So let's just say, let's just say 10 years. I think it's like 12, but we'll say 8 or 10 years. At 10 years, go ahead and start marketing, right? Or 2 years before. If it's 12 years, let's say 10 years, right? I'm going to go ahead and start marketing to them, to Savannah and Savannah and Adam, kids over here, guys. But because I want to make sure that I'm top of mind with them. And I'm going to market to them all along, right? Because I truly want to create that brand recognition. And if you as a manufacturer are awarding those types of behaviors, oh, look, they sent out an email to Savannah just to double check that Savannah was getting good use of her product, make sure everything's good, et cetera. You can award that, because what's happening, there's a brand recognition with your product. And you can co-brand those things, and you can award those behaviors, right? So what ends up happening, everybody's getting that dopamine hit, like, oh my God, they checked in. This is great. And that never happens, right?
Yeah.
And And then when it comes time to buy, not only were you going to get awarded, you as the installer, for selling the next unit, but the consumer feels confident because now they know the brand and they're going to get that other, that next rebate. But again, that's that emotional piece that they're getting. So I think that there are a lot of ways that those things can really be thought about, right, when you're building that comprehensive strategy.
But like, where do you start? Like, do you start with your goals? Like, that's like the one point. Like, what makes somebody go, I want to do rewards in this kind of strategy? Like, I'm trying to meet a specific goal. Like,
what are the corporate goals? Like, so
start with the entire business objectives,
right,
and then figure out what is my department's responsibility in contributing to that goal.
Yes.
And that's how we advise people who call us, like, I just want a program because my competitors have.
I don't have a budget. My competitors have it. I got to have this thing. Oh, no.
But we've helped those people before too.
But that's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So when I say no, that's a bad way to do it. That does help you, right?
Yeah.
Build out this strategy, because if you just say, oh, well, my competitor has one, so here's, $100,000 in rewards, reward all the things, you're not going to get it.
You want to be able to walk into a board meeting or whatever and say, here is how much money this program made us, and here's what the return on the investment was.
100%.
Supposed to sell 20. Here's the 25 that we did because we implemented this program.
Yes. Here is the bottom line for you guys.
Yeah.
That's super important. And I think the next piece outside of goals is also that buyer audience, right? You have to know who you're going to award and for what behaviors. So tying those things together are super important, because awards aren't created equal. It's funny what Savannah just said. We do have people who call in sometimes and they go, oh, we don't want to award more than, $500 a year or $100 a year. I've heard that one recently.
That's the minimum.
Per person or just total?
It takes to change someone's behavior is $500. Well, worth of points or rewards or whatever per year.
But I think that goes back to the buyer. I don't think that goes back to the buyer. A lot of dealers, they make a lot of good money. If you make $500,000 plus a year, hell, even if you make 200 or even 100,000 a year plus, $500 is nothing, you guys. $100 is absolutely nothing. That's not going to be enough of a carrot to motivate change. So you have to really understand, and I think that this is where that 20-60-20 framework, not only does it behavioral related, but it's also understanding your buyer audience framework. Your top performers, award them for the behaviors with something like travel. Right, this is a big deal. I'm going to get together with other dealers. We can talk about products, what's working for them, where they expect slowdowns. We're networking together. Those things are really important. When you, likewise, at the 60%, right, those people, maybe installers is something to that effect, and an award of $500-600 might work for them. And some dealers are going to be those kind of lower tier. I say lower tier because they're super relevant to your business and there's a lot of opportunity to help them grow. However, where they're at right now, they're making less than $100K a year. That $500 award seemingly goes a long way.
Yeah. You can also help them with some marketing too, though.
Oh, totally.
Boost
Well,
them out.
that's where. Well, and as you should, yes, and as we as a business should, and as those businesses should want to do, for sure. And then after you get outside of that, buyer audience framework and understanding what, the goals, the framework, and the motivational components, it's time to start understanding, okay, how does my budget tie into this? To start picking the budget that's going to help you drive those behaviors that you want to change. And once you have that, you got to find the company or the people to help you do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Once you do like one program, then you have the answers to so many questions you didn't have the answers to before. Like, okay, I know this works better in this reward works better in context this way, and people are more motivated by this. So each one that you do is theoretically going to be better than the last one because you know more about what works.
Oh, 100%. And don't ask what, I hear this a lot too, and I think it's so important to say, okay, yes, your competitors are likely running a program. Don't worry about them so much. Worry about creating a program that's going to matter to your audience, right? If you're just trying to compete with your competitors and you're trying to keep costs low, and you aren't doing it for the right reasons, then don't do it. That's the wrong way to go about it. You're not going to be successful. And again, to your earlier point, if you walk into a boardroom and you say, yeah, we're doing this thing, we sunk this much money into it, but we don't really care, is essentially what you're saying. Your boss sees that, right? People see that, they know that, it's obvious. And so don't set yourself up for failure that way. And quite frankly, even if you're not walking into a boardroom, if you're just looking at it from your own lens, you should want more than that. You should want to hit your goals. That's just laziness otherwise. And that should never be.
And the more unique that you can make your program, the more closely it is tied with who you are as a brand and what you want to accomplish, the less your competition is going to be able to duplicate that effort. Like, forget them being able to copy you. Like, they don't even know what you're doing because it's so specific. You're serving your particular channel so well that they can't, they can't copy what you're doing.
Well, and that's just it. And even if they try, you will have already set your brand with a standard. And yes, then it is time to raise the ante, right? You keep adding on, and your brand, again, there are 100 reasons to buy your brand, but sometimes it can really come down to the differentiator between you and your competitor. And oftentimes an award can be that. As a matter of fact, I read this interesting article that Indeed put out, and they were saying they interviewed hundreds of women, and they created a top 10 list of like, what are women looking for as they go into the business world, right? Or what are the demands they have from the companies that they work for? And awards was in the top 5, I think. I was like, it was definitely I think it was because it was on the left side of the paper. I thought that was really interesting. So we as women are expecting that. And I'm pretty sure if we were to do the same thing and start looking at likewise men, I bet it nets out to be something similar.
Do you remember what any of the other ones were? Just curious.
I mean, there are some basic things, which is actually pretty interesting. So maternity was on there. There was like work-life balance was certainly on there. I'm trying to think of what you call money.
Compensation.
Compensation was on. I really wanted to say the salary word. So like salary, benefits salary was number 1. Benefits was number 2. The people you work with, I'm going to chalk it up to culture. I can't remember how they lined or worded it, but that was on there. So again, funny enough, those basic human needs and awards is now right, and awards is now part of that. Like that's how people relate it.
Especially the culture. I mean, we spend most of our lives here. Probably spend more time with you all than I get to spend at home.
Oh,
and
totally.
so it's important to be somewhere that you like and that you care about the people you're working with. It's not just the job because you're with them.
Exactly. Well, and we all know that, and we've seen it before, right? If one person has a bad attitude, that spreads like wildfire. Where if one person has a bad attitude and 5 people have a good attitude, that bad attitude still spreads faster than the positive. And I don't know why that is, but again, I think it ties back to there's probably psychological behaviors we can connect to that if we really.
People are like, why are they unhappy? And then they start questioning it rather than everybody lifting and creating.
What do I not know? And oh my gosh. But they said that about reviews too. And I say they because I don't know who they are. But I've read this. Well, I know, right?
Yeah.
But we've read, I think because there are so many theys at this point who, and we can all vouch for so many theys. Well, I mean, we are all theys. When we think about the reviews that we give, oftentimes we're way quicker to say the negative reviews than we are the positive.
I don't leave negative reviews.
But do you know what? Well, you don't?
No.
Oh, you always do.
I don't give them any notice of me that I even did business with them unless it's positive. I just like shout people out. That's my approach.
Well,
I'm not trying to like
not everyone.
Don't say anything if you don't have anything good to say.
Yeah, I'm an old soul.
Wow.
That's
Your
what
business's favorite type of consumer.
Yeah. But you're not the average, right? Most people will go out and they'll give bad reviews, and everyone wants to say the negative thing now, and that's okay. But it's not. Come on, guys. Like at some point, it's business.
A lot of problem people. Not
But
a lot of
think about the why. And I know I'm going to use my husband as an example. And I always say, and now he's not a big influencer, but he started to go down that path. And when it became popular, he was like, "Well, I'm not doing this anymore because you can't be like with the crowd." But
I can't be the best one.
yeah, if everyone else is doing it, I'm not doing it. But he was a trendsetter. And what I mean by that, we started traveling heavily in 2008. And when we would show up, if he had a bad experience, he would go out and tweet about it. I'm going to use hotels as an example. I won't say any names. Within minutes, our issues would be solved. Mm-hmm. We had the same thing with airlines, right? Pickup services, so like transportation services, etc. That in and of itself is an award. Why my problem is all of a sudden solved. Like that dopamine happened, and it's reinforcing.
They took care of me.
The consumer the consumer mattered first and foremost. Yeah. So even in those and what ends up so I'm trying to tie all this together, and we were kind of going on all these angles, but ultimately my point is that people will leave negative reviews or go out and comment. Rarely do they leave positive, even if they do have the positive experience. Now I will say in those cases, my husband he would post like, shout out to whomever it was in the marketing team who saw the social post and took care of me. That person's a rock star. Shame on front desk for treating us like shit, right?
Yeah.
But there's still that angle. And all I'm trying to say is that it reinforced in and of itself, it was an award.
Yeah.
And the negative is still always is out there. You can't do away with it once it's there.
No, and I mean, any engagement with your customers or your audience is still an opportunity for engagement that you
Even
can turn
if
into a
unfair.
positive experience.
Well, we had an interview here, and this is about me, actually, funny enough. And this girl showed up an hour and a half late, and she wouldn't leave. And so, like, I was literally refusing to leave. And so I got a call. I was only an ELT and house that day, and so I got a call from front desk, and they said, "Hey, we really need your help." Like, she will not leave. And so I went up, and I was trying to get her to the door, and she was arguing and a little belligerent, if you will. And it finally got to a point like, "Hey, we're going to call the cops if you don't leave." And I had a bad Google review within minutes. And I have to laugh at that because, okay, you don't have to like me, but you know what? The safety of my employees will always come before your feelings. I don't
know with people anymore.
That's the thing. And I will never forget that. And then luckily I had some people here who went out and were, well, here are the facts, you know. If we ask you to leave the business and you're refusing, obviously in the day that we live in, that makes you nervous.
Mm-hmm.
The negative review is never going to go away.
Well, and I mean, if it's like, oh, I was doing this, and I mean, it's not even like I worked there. It's like,
Yeah, you failed to mention the part that you wouldn't leave or that you showed up an hour and a half late to an interview and just expected us to stop. No, that can't.
selective hearing.
Right, but psychologically, I think ultimately she's still going to feel empowered. She left that review, right? So
I think with how busy people are today too, people sometimes forget that one of the biggest ways you can leave an impression on whether it's a channel partner or customer is making something more convenient for them. Like I remember when self-checkout first became a thing. Wasn't it like life-changing that it was like, this makes my life so much more convenient because no one likes going to the grocery store. And with the channel, there are a lot of things like that that's like, I have to do this. Any way that you can make it easier for them, I'm asking you to, I'm giving you a reward, but you have to first submit your sales claim to prove that you did it. Well, that's where a lot of channel businesses run into problems with rewards, is because they can't provide that convenience to make it easy to do something. So essentially you're asking someone, oh, do even more extra work to get this reward that I was going to give you for doing something.
Just like building a website, you have to remove as many barriers as possible.
So if you can do something like, oh, you just like take a picture of your sales claim and then like automatically upload it into the reward, then all of a sudden you've made it like way more convenient for them to do something and given them a reward for it.
And they're excited to participate.
Yeah. So the convenience is like, that can be a huge emotional connection between B2B businesses and the rest of their channel.
But one thing we should talk about too is we're talking about the emotional connection, but also the psychology behind, when you do build your program, we've talked a lot about the goals and connecting them to the buyer audiences and the emotional demand. I say the emotional demands, but really the demands that these people have and what's going to motivate them. We also have to look at fraud, right? Mm-hmm. And we have to talk about fraud, I think, because what we have learned over the years, the people that you think you know so well will game your system if you don't put the right checks and balances in place. And,
then there's cybersecurity, which is
a whole nother ball of wax. But those things are so important for anyone that we're working with, right? But also your dealers who aren't trying to game systems and who are putting, let's be honest, PI data out there and in these programs, right? So you really want to make sure that you're working with vendors who take that as this even more serious than you do, right? And I think that and listen to your consultants, right, as they recommend, best practices. So, for example, I can't tell you how many times we've had conversations with some of our clients where we go, guys, we do not recommend this. This is what you need to know. And then it happens, and we try to accommodate anytime that happens.
We don't tell we told you so.
No, of course. Well,
here's how we move forward.
No, right. Oh, of course not. But to your point, it is more of a how do we move forward? We can't eat the entire cost, unfortunately, right? Because we're a small business. And a lot of times, with our clients, these are enterprise level businesses, so we can't eat $100,000 loss, right? Not this, and but what we can do is now say, hey, instead of I told you so, it's now let's go and put these security measures in place, or let's remove this thing that you thought you needed so badly, because it will happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I know that you may love them as a distributor, but they just gamed your system. Pull them out and break up with them. You hear stories about they uploaded the same receipt multiple times, and they just changed out like what is that number called? The SKU, thank you. Or not even the SKU, they would just go and edit quantities, or sometimes they just submit the same receipt over and over again. You have to have systems in place that prevent that from happening. So while those cameras are awesome, you got to make sure that you have thresholds in the back end that are really monitoring certain components, and all like PO numbers in particular, right? Most invoices are associated with a PO number or very specific SKUs. And if you see, the same PO number uploaded multiple times, the system that you're working with should be able to flag that and go, whoa, stop, don't pay out, right? We need to have this reviewed.
Is that the kind of stuff that SOC 2 deals with? Like, I know it's all about data privacy. I did social media guy, so it's a little out of my wheelhouse. But
No, I'm no SOC expert. That's a conversation we can have Kelly come in here and talk about, and probably should have on the show.
Yeah.
But ultimately, from my very small lens, I know that there's audit trails that are associated, but that's more for the business that's paying for the incentive, not necessarily the fraudulent components. But there is a PI component to that as well. I'm no expert, so I can't sit here and talk to it.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
What I do is we ask Kelly held the questions. Hey, give us a write up. We put it in PR, right? And our job is done. We take the really crazy words, make them a little more legible, and we say, hey, look, we have this, and we put the SOC compliant logo on our site.
Yep.
Yeah, from what I understand, SOC 2 is one of the harder certifications to get. So the fact that we were able to present our system and get that certification is something that, like we want to let our clients know that your data is going to be safe with us. We're not going to let your partner's information out there, because that's one of the biggest concerns I think in the channel that causes distrust is the partners in the middle, like the distributors and the dealers and the resellers. They don't want to give away their customers' information because they don't want to lose the trust of those customers. So if you as a manufacturer have it, you never want to let them feel like, well, they're already feeling not great about it. You don't want them to feel extra horrible because there was a leak or something.
Well, you make a good point too. A lot of the middlemen in the channel, right, from manufacturer to consumer, also worry that the manufacturer will bypass them if they get consumer information. So how do we, as mid-marketers and marketers in general, reinforce that idea of your data is safe? We're going to protect you so that no one bypasses you. There has to be such a level of trust that's built with them, right? So it's not just who we sign the check with, but it's also all the people in the middle that we're working with along the way, so that they know that that's not going to happen. That in fact, what's going to happen is that the manufacturers are going to market with you and give you some of those dollars, right? So think like MDF dollars or marketing dollars to really help you help them, right? So it has to work in perfect harmony. And again, it goes back to those basic instincts that are so, or hierarchy of needs, if you will, that are so innate.
And I think it's hard in the business atmosphere to build that trust a lot of times, because you don't necessarily feel better about something because you had a meeting and you left that meeting like, oh, I really trust that person. But if you have some type of system in place where you build more opportunities to connect, like a group travel event, you go on a trip with that partner, you get to know them on a more personal level, you go fishing with them, you go golfing with them, you share a really meaningful experience. That builds the kind of trust that you really can't build in any other type of setting.
It's like the win-win-win-win-win reward.
All right, so let's talk about the last thing, as I know we're running out of time here. And, one thing that, we've talked about a couple strategy or things that you need to consider as part of your strategy. I think one of the last pieces we have to talk about is communication, right? When you build a reward program of any type, you have to communicate that program, right? And communication also gives that sense of safety, right? Mm-hmm. So when you tie those things together, we have to remember to do that. And, so anyone out there who's not a marketer, and you know, marketers hear this too, but we can't be you can't be afraid to spend money on communications to make sure that everyone is in the know about your program and why it's so important to them and what's in store for them, what's in, you know, the reward for them. And in marketers, we can't be afraid to say, hey, in order for your program to be successful, we have to get the marketing strategy right.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
just read a study. I can't remember if it was the Incentive Federation or the Incentive Research Foundation, but they studied in 2002 like a top performing company versus a standard performing company. And in the top performing case, in every stage of communication, they were communicating more with people about the program on the onboarding, on the reward redemption area, on like throughout the program's life cycle. Like at every stage, they were doing a higher percentage of communication.
Totally. And right now, you know, it's interesting. Right now, we live in a world where a lot of our clients and a lot of different industries, you know, it's funny, through COVID, we didn't have any products, and now we've got an abundance of products. We've got all this stuff. It's now in warehouse. Like, we got to get it out. And these are great times to run spiffs and promotions on these products so that you're getting them out the door, right? And so how can you, you know, if you do have a program, like how can you communicate that? And how do you, you know, especially if you run a sale associated with it, people love sales in today's time because God knows we pay enough for everything, right? So really making sure that you're communicating that, helping move product and letting people know they're getting the best deals that they can. Again, it reinforces that emotional security when they're buying. With all that said, guys, we're out of time. So as you all know, we like to do a little plug at the end for other companies, but today we are going to shamelessly plug Extu because this is exactly what we do all day, guys. We literally create an award behaviors for marketing and sales tactics.
We're pretty good at it.
We do. So thank you guys for joining us. We're going to put all the references listed here along with this. Check out our website, check out our blog. We'll put a link to the Why Do Incentives Work Exploring the Psychology of Rewards blog in here. You can sign up for more or contact us and we can help you build out your strategy. I'm Adam.
I'm Nichole.
I'm Savannah.
And we appreciate you joining us. Until next time, keep disrupting, growing, and winning together.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.